prayer does nothing to God. Prayer does nothing to God. God is a principle and a power and a presence that is giving of itself always to everyone, everything. We don't have to plead. We don't have to beg. It is already given, and prayer allows us to let go of all the stuff that's in the way of our receiving what is already given. Prayer is about raising our vibration, our consciousness, into a greater realization of that power and presence that is already there, that is already giving. Emerson said, "The infinite lies in smiling repose." It's like, I already gave them everything. What are they waiting for? So it's given. So it's about our being receptive. It's about our opening to that power and presence. And part of what we have to do is to get through the collective consciousness of humanity that is a consciousness of lack. If I get it, you can't have it. Remember that game we played as children, where we all went around and the chairs got fewer and fewer, and it was like, let's all learn about lack early. No, let's not. Let's say that the universe was created abundantly. Jesus even said, "I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly." We keep thinking that being poor is spiritual. There is nothing spiritual about being poor. We are meant to live abundantly. We are here to express more life. Do you think that the Spirit incarnated to suffer? Not really. It incarnated to express joy and love and happiness and grace and peace. And we're the ones who invented all that other stuff. In fact, Ernest Holmes says, in a quote here, "In our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions from which we suffer." So it's our belief in lack, our belief that we are warlike people, our belief that conflict is a necessary part of life and that it involves violence. Conflict is a necessary part of life, but it doesn't involve violence. It doesn't have to involve violence, because if we look at the quantum level, we see that things come into conflict and chaos, and what emerges from conflict and chaos is a higher level of order. But it doesn't have to be, us all destroying each other. It just means we have to come together and we have to, figure it out together. We have to give all of our ideas together, and then we have to come up with the other idea that wants to be born through us. I got my opinion, you got your opinion, and then there's something else that wants to be known if we let it. So, one of the ways that we encounter this limitation is through financial adversity. And so we're talking about how to get through financial adversity. The first thing we have to do is to be grateful for whatever it is we do have. Now, I don't know if you have seen it, but there is a Facebook little meme going around that has a minister who does this thing where he has this video. And you see a guy wrapped head to toe in Christmas wrap. And then he bursts open the Christmas wrap and says, I'm awake. And he's like, joyful. And then he sits up and he's taking off the wrapping, and then another person comes in, all covered with wrapping, and he tears the wrapping off of her. It's his wife. Oh, I love you. Oh, I love you too. And then the kids come in. They're all wrapped up. And they tear them open. It was like, oh, I love you too, and I love you too. And then he goes in and he's like turning on the light. Look, the light goes on when I flip this. Look, light. And then he turns on the faucet. Water, there's fresh water, And then he goes in. Look, a shower. Water is coming out. I could just stand under it. Oh, and he's singing in the shower. And then, and then he comes downstairs and they bring another package, and he opens the package and it's breakfast. It's food. So it's like grateful for it all, just joyfully, exuberantly grateful for everything. Really having that attitude of gratitude raises our vibration. And when we're grateful, we get more of what we're grateful for. So we continue to experience joy and goodness. We become an inlet and an outlet for good. In other words, his experiencing that joy is now bringing joy to everyone who watches that video. And I know, remember the old Oprah Winfrey show? She was, God knows she was receiving, but she was also giving. She was giving away all kinds of stuff. Every time people showed up, they were getting CDs, they were getting books, they were getting cars, they were getting, I don't know what they were. She was just giving, because she knew she was an inlet and an outlet. So it's giving, it's receiving and giving, being in the flow. Hoarding stops the flow. The prosperity teacher Edwin Gaines says money is like manure. It only works if you spread it around. Otherwise, it just sits there and stinks. So we want to spread it around. We want to make use of it. Money, there's this belief from the Christian religion, or from the Judeo-Christian tradition. There was this idea that money is the root of all evil. That's not what it says. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. The love of money, because money is just a tool. It is not anything in and of itself. It's just something we invented that was handy, so we wouldn't have to drag the cow to the, whatever, to trade for the vegetables. We could have some money. We could have some change. We could have, it's just energy. It's just energy that's put into form that we use to exchange with each other. It doesn't have any kind of good or evil associated with it. It just is. How it is for us is up here. Our consciousness, our ideas about it. If we had a hammer, if we just in love with the hammer, but we never did anything with it, it's the same thing. It's a tool. We have to use it. So in this book that we're studying this month, The Path to Wealth by Mae McCarthy, she talks about a spiritual practice that she has. And this spiritual practice consists of 7 steps that she does every morning. It is a spiritual practice. So what she does is she begins by calling God. Now we can call God anything. In the meditation, we had God called Father. God is also called Mother. God is also called Universe. It's also called Spirit. It's also called Fairy or Angel or whatever. It's what works for you to connect with whatever it is. Because it is here, and it is a presence, and it is a power, and it is personal. We're all made of it. And it responds by corresponding to our thought. So our thought is very powerful. So what she has, she calls that spirit the chief spiritual officer of her company. It's the chief spiritual officer. And so she, says all business owners meet with their leadership every day in one way or another. Maybe it's a conference call, whatever, but they meet with their leadership. So she is meeting with her leadership, her chief spiritual officer, every day. And she meets for half an hour, and she has a specific agenda with this chief spiritual officer. The first thing she does is she reads something spiritual. She reads something inspiring. Now, it could be poetry, it could be, just a quote, it could be a little paragraph. God knows there are books and books and books that you can buy that have meditations for every single day of the year. We have, Science of Mind 365. We have the Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. There's all kinds of things, and you could just have a book there, and you read something that is inspiring, because the first thing you're doing is lifting your energy. Instead of just thinking about all the to-dos you have that day, you're really opening yourself to something inspiring, uplifting, because you can certainly see everything better when you rise above it. When you're at the higher level, you can see things more clearly. So you read that to inspire yourself to just begin that up-leveling of the energy. Then you write a letter to the chief spiritual officer, and it's a gratitude letter. You're writing all the things that you're thankful for. And the key to this is you're being thankful not only for what you already have, you're being thankful for what you want to receive. You're being thankful, in her case, she was being thankful for the $400,000 or more that she would have coming to her by means of contracts by the end of the month. And she just, would claim it right there. I'm so thankful for that $400,000 worth of contracts that's coming to me by the end of this month. And so she writes that all down as if it's already happening, and then she reads the letter out loud with emotion. This is a key piece, because we read it out loud with emotion because it's the feeling tone that really is the activating energy that we want to have. So we're reading it out loud with that emotion. I am so grateful for this. And, and then the fourth step of that is you imagine. Now, imagination is such a powerful gift that we have received. And we can use it for good, or we can use it to make a mess. Now, she talks about a situation where, like a lot of us, she only was praying when she needed something, right? She was only praying when it was, convenient and there was something up for her. So this is before she began this daily practice. So she was going along her business, things were cooking along, and then all of a sudden, boom, her chief technical person who they were relying upon for this next product that they were developing, got into some legal trouble that might have ended up with him in prison. And she was like, oh my God, if he's gone, our product, we won't be able to deliver. And of course, what do? You go into the worst case scenario, right? So what are you doing? You are practicing a practice called worrying. Worrying is negative prayer. It is putting out a thought with the energy of fear, very powerful energy, with the energy of fear. And if you keep that up, guess what's going to happen? You're activating the universal law that says, oh, It doesn't know good or bad. It just knows, oh, I got energy and I got a thing. I'm going to bring that right into being. We don't want that. So we have to do the practice. And the practice is switch your thought. We have to change direction. We can't go down the old fear hole. We have to lift it up. We have to know what's possible. We have to know that with God, all things are possible. So she started writing out, she started remembering that fear blocks the channel of communication with her chief spiritual officer. So she didn't want to do that. So she started praying, and she started, affirmative prayer, and she started putting up principles all over the place to remind her, and she started putting affirmations that she would recite. Some of them were, all adverse appearances dissipate, and a good outcome for all is revealed now. Another one was, I cast all burdens of fear on the spirit within, and I go free to see good results appear in this situation. Okay, so she is reminding herself, every time she starts feeling that constricting energy of fear, she recites these affirmations. Now you can say, well, yeah, blah, 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 blah. The thing is, you got to fake it till you make it. When you first say that affirmation, you may not have the feeling, but you keep saying it until you get it, until you feel that drop, that thunk, that knowing that this is the absolute truth. So that's what she did. She kept going, and still she would find herself worrying, and she'd have to go back, find herself worrying, go back, and then all of a sudden, after doing this for a couple of weeks, she finally had the feeling that, yes, I really know that all is well. Now you notice that in those affirmations, she wasn't asking for anything specific to happen. She was asking for the highest good for all. This is a very critical piece, because if we get too specific, we're not going to recognize the answer when it comes, because it might look different than what we thought it was going to look like. So we have to really be open and say, highest good for all, the highest good for everyone. And sure enough, that happened. The highest good for everyone unfolded. The guy did get convicted, but he got work furlough things, so he could go to work, and then he could go to jail, and he could go to work, and he could go to jail. And so he could still do what he needed to do, and he was very inspired to do his very best on this project. So what she learned from this is it's not enough to just pray when you're having a problem. It's about meeting with your chief spiritual officer every day. You want to have an ongoing relationship with that presence and power within. And like any relationship, you have to nurture it. You have to be connected to it. You have to practice it. And that practice just involves being grateful for everything, and then being grateful for the things that you want to have as well. And Ernest Holmes, who founded the Science of Mind and Spirit back in almost 100 years ago, in 1918, was when he first took this on the road. So next year they'll be celebrating 100 years of the Science of Mind. He said, when a problem confronts you, take it into the silence of your consciousness. Instead of thinking of the problem, think of the answer. God does not have problems. Therefore, the divine mind is the answer to every human problem. Problems are solved by bringing them under the control of principles. Principles never have problems. The problem is dissolved as the principle flows through it to the correct answer. And what Mae McCarthy says is, when you have a daily practice, it really takes you off the roller coaster of ups and downs. It really helps to smooth things out, so that maybe you have a little bit of up, a little bit of down, but it's not the old, like that. It's much more smooth. Even the Master Teacher Jesus did say, "And all things whatsoever you shall ask in prayer, believing, you shall receive." So he was telling us, you have to believe to receive. You have to believe that the good is given and that the good is yours. In my class last week, one of my students said something very wise. She said, "Fear is my undirected imagination. Faith is my imagination directed." So when we find ourselves in fear, what is happening is we're buying into the collective consciousness, and we are finding ourselves in that quagmire of the human experience that doesn't have to be the truth for us. Just like I told you about, I keep bringing this up because it really worked, was, when I walked across those hot coals in the fire, I wasn't looking at the coals. We don't look at the obstacles. We look at the goal. Henry Ford said the same thing. You only see the obstacles when you forget to see the goal. So we have to keep the goal in mind. And the goal might be, peace of mind. The goal might be joy, more love, more health, more prosperity. Whatever it is, we keep our eye on that goal. Keep clear before me the moments of my high resolve. That's what Howard Thurman said. Keep clear before me the moments of my high resolve, when I know what I know, when I know that Spirit is here supporting me. Part of that also is visualizing our good. Now, one of the places we see this visualization, using our imagination in a positive way, is in sports, right? A lot of athletes visualize the race or the whatever. And she quotes Jack Nicklaus, who was a great golfer. He said, "I never hit a shot, not even in practice, without having a very sharp, in-focus picture of it in my head. First, I see the ball where I want it to finish, nice and white and sitting up high on the bright green grass. Then the scene quickly changes, and I see the ball going there, its path, trajectory, and shape, even its behavior on landing. Then there is a sort of fade out, and the next scene shows me making the kind of swing that will turn the previous images into reality." So he absolutely envisioned the whole thing. And so that's the use of our imagination that we want to have. We want to see the goal, and then we see stuff leading up to the goal. And we also open to intuition in this process, because that presence, that chief spiritual officer, is going to give us some leads, some clues, some inspiration. So for instance, she was doing her practice one morning, and the picture of this friend came into her mind. So as soon as she saw that, she thought, okay, I got to call that friend. And she did call the friend. And sure enough, the friend said, I just got a new job. I'm over at this place, and we want you to do the software for the hospital. It's like, sure, great. You know, she did not call her with anything in mind, just to connect. She just knew. Spirit says, connect with this person. She did, and it turned out to be a contract for her business. So it's about listening to that intuition and following the intuition, because that is the guidance that we're getting from that wealth of good that rests within us, and accessing it, letting it be who we are. So, having our own good is great, but you know what I would like? We talked about wealth being well-being. In fact, the quote from Henry David Thoreau says, wealth is the ability to fully experience life. And it comes from the root of it is weal, W-E-A-L, which means well-being. So we are about well-being. And what the key of one of these affirmative prayers is that what we want for ourselves, we want for everyone. And what I would like is that we have peace among families and political parties and tribes and the nations on the planet. I would love to see that. And I can't see it if I can't see it. I have to see it in my mind. I have to look beyond the conditions. I have to look beyond what is going on in the news, and I have to realize and recognize that the power of peace is present. And so I have to make it present in my life first. I can't be going out and saying, I want peace between the nations if I'm fighting with my husband, if I'm fighting with my kids. I have to have peace in my heart, in my family, in my community, in my state, in my nation, before I can have peace on the planet. And I can't do that if I can't imagine it. So I would like us to just spend a moment. I hear a little drippy noise. Okay. All right. Is that still happening somewhere? Okay, God's playing a video game. Is that someone? Oh, okay. Our practitioner is turning her phone off. Okay. God is calling. God is calling. Okay. That's okay. All right. See, we have to practice forgiveness. Very big in this process. So I would just like us to spend 1 minute right now, 1 minute, and try to imagine the planet in peace. Visualizing a world that truly works for everyone, where we're being good stewards of our natural resources and caring for all living things, and we're sharing our good with everyone, and we're seeing all as family. Let's do that for just 1 minute. And so as we come back together again, we say our affirmation for this week, which is, what the CSO has done for others, the CSO does for me and more. What the CSO has done for others, the CSO does for me and more. What the CSO has done for others, the CSO does for me and more. What the CSO has done for others, the CSO does for me and more. All right, and now we are calling in the consciousness of the new minister for this community. And we're doing that the same way. We're reading it out loud and we're doing it with emotion. All right, so it's my new minister covenant. All right, God has promised, so powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. Purpose. My new minister is the unity that I am. I see my new minister vision empowering our thriving spiritual community. The universal intentions for my new minister are to inspire me to live in unity as an expression of love, to awaken me to the wisdom within, to embody the consciousness of wholeness in community and organizational well-being. The community intentions for my new minister are to offer mystical teachings that illuminate the science of mind principles, to be a loving and beneficial presence in the greater community in support of social activism. And so it is.